If you've ever been close to Donald Trump, here's a friendly warning. Loyalty has a short shelf life. Today, you're a trusted ally. Tomorrow, you might be facing federal indictments. That's the world of Trump's revenge politics. And the latest target? None other than John Bolton, the former national security advisor turned outspoken critic. After publishing a scathing memoir revealing the inner workings of the Trump White House, Bolton suddenly finds himself under federal scrutiny for allegedly mishandling classified information. But he's not alone. In recent weeks, former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James have also been pulled into legal battles that critics say bear Trump's unmistakable fingerprints. In this video, we'll unpack the latest developments, explore the tangled web of politics, power, and personal grudges, and ask the question on everyone's mind. Is this a quest for justice, or just Trump's next chapter of payback? John Bolton's story reads almost like a political thriller. Except, this one is playing out in real time, and the protagonist is a former ally of Donald Trump. Once the national security advisor in Trump's first term, Bolton was a key player in shaping foreign policy. But as history and his own memoir shows, being close to Trump is a high-stakes gamble. What was once loyalty became a liability after Bolton published his tell-all book, exposing the inner workings of the White House with the bluntness only he could muster. He went from confident to critic overnight. Fast forward to today, and Bolton finds himself under federal investigation. According to reports, the U.S. attorney in Maryland may indict him as soon as next week for allegedly mishandling classified documents. The FBI had already raided his home in Bethesda and his office in Washington, D.C., seizing folders labeled confidential and classified. Bolton's attorney insists that nothing inappropriate was stored, framing it as a routine collection of documents from a bon year government career. But in the shadowy world of Trump-era politics, appearances rarely matter more than perception. It's easy to see why this is captivating and alarming news. Bolton is, in many ways, a cautionary tale. He was loyal, he served at the highest levels, and yet, in the volatile universe of Trump, loyalty doesn't protect you. It makes you a target if you dare to speak your mind afterward. Critics point out that this pattern, indictments and investigations against former aides and political opponents, fits neatly into a larger narrative. Trump's penchant for retribution. And let's not overlook the irony. Bolton, who spent decades navigating the corridors of power, now faces the legal machinery he once oversaw from the inside. It's a reminder that in politics, the higher you climb, the harder you fall, and sometimes the fall isn't just metaphorical. There's a dash of dark humor here. A man who once advised a president now finds himself dodging legal scrutiny because of what he said about that very president. For viewers, the lesson is both compelling and chilling. Proximity to power can be intoxicating. But in Trump's America, it can also be dangerous. Bolton's predicament is a vivid example of how quickly roles can reverse, allies can become adversaries, and history can be rewritten with the stroke of a pen or the filing of an indictment. As we move forward, Bolton's story will be a lens through which we understand not just Trump's strategy, but the fragility of alliances in modern politics. If John Bolton is the latest figure in Donald Trump's unfolding saga of payback, he is by no means the first. In recent weeks, former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James have also found themselves on the receiving end of legal scrutiny, a pattern that observers say is hard to ignore. Comey, who famously oversaw the investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails and later the Russia probe, has long been a thorn in Trump's side. Letitia James, meanwhile, has pursued Trump and his business empire through civil investigations. ED's president. The common thread here is unmistakable. Those who dared to challenge or criticize Trump, professionally or publicly, now find themselves facing legal pressure. Critics call it a form of selective justice, while Trump supporters argue it's accountability catching up to powerful figures. Either way, the optics are striking. In the court of public opinion, the message is clear: cross Trump, and you might end up on the receiving end of federal or civil action. And Trump himself seems to revel in this narrative throughout his 하이닝콩 참 하이미뚜 campaign. He made repeated statements about seeking revenge on those who had rolled him. The legal proceedings against Comey, James, and now potentially Bolton feel almost like chapters in a political thriller, with Trump casting himself simultaneously as the hero, the avenger, and sometimes, depending on whom you ask, the villain. There's also a darkly humorous element to the whole situation. Comey, once the nation's top law enforcement officer, is now dealing with investigations that critics describe as politically charged. Letitia James, a fierce advocate for accountability, suddenly finds herself targeted in ways that mirror the cases she has been pursuing, and Bolton, as we've seen, is navigating the consequences of his memoir and his outspokenness. It's almost Shakespearean in its irony. The actors are all familiar with the stage of power. Yet the plot twists are as unpredictable as they are dramatic. For viewers, the broader psyche is chilling but fascinating. Trump's strategy of targeting former aides, critics, and opponents demonstrates a willingness to wield power beyond the White House and into the judicial and civil spheres. It's a reminder that in Trump's America, political survival can require more than skill or loyalty. It demands vigilance, caution, and perhaps a sense of humor. Because at any moment, you could become the next protagonist in the ongoing saga of retribution. In short, Bolton, Comey, and James are not just individuals caught in legal battles. They are symbols of a larger, more unsettling phenomenon: the personalization of justice, the weaponization of investigations, and the stark consequences of having ever dared to oppose a man who refuses to forget. As we watch these stories unfold, we are witnessing a pattern that could define an era of American politics, one revenge plot at a time. If the saga of Trump's revenge has a recurring theme, it's secrets, big secrets, little secrets, and sometimes very poorly stored secrets. John Bolton's predicament is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. The ongoing drama surrounding classified documents and the former president's own handling of them. Recall that Trump left office with thousands of documents, some marked classified, stashed at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Palm Beach. When the FBI recovered roughly three banging items, it wasn't just a headline, it was a vivid illustration of how dangerously casual access to sensitive materials had become. Bolton's investigation intersects with this broader story. The FBI's raids on his home and office reportedly focused on whether his memoir contained classified information and if documents were mishandled. His attorney insists that Bolton was simply preserving decades of government records, nothing more nefarious. But in the world of Trump-era politics, context and perception often outweigh technicalities. The optics of a former aide and a former president, both facing scrutiny for similar issues, create a striking narrative. One man's memoir is prosecuted, another's collection is the center of a national security inquiry. The humor here, dark, of course, each is almost inevitable. Imagine a real-life game of secrets where classified folders are the pieces and the FBI agents are the players, swooping in to confiscate items like a bizarre treasure hunt. It's Kafkaesque yet entirely real. High-stakes politics meets bureaucratic procedure with national security as the backdrop. The contrast between Bolton's meticulous record-keeping and Trump's more creative approach to sensitive materials only adds to the absurdity. Yet beneath the irony lies a serious lesson. The mishandling of classified information isn't just a procedural violation, it threatens national security. And the fact that these investigations involve former presidents and top advisors makes it clear that no one, not even the highest office in the land, is immune from scrutiny. Bolton's and Trump's cases highlight a fundamental tension in American politics, the intersection of personal ambition, historical record-keeping, and the rule of law. For viewers, the key takeaway is this: secrets, whether tightly held or carelessly stored, can have consequences that echo far beyond the office in which they were created. The story of Mar-a-Lago, Bolton, and the sprawling investigations into classified materials is not just political theater. This a cautionary tale. And as Trump's legal dramas unfold alongside those of his former aides, the stakes only grow higher, keeping the nation watching, questioning, and, yes, occasionally shaking its head in disbelief. As we step back from the whirlwind of indictments, raids, and memoirs, a larger picture begins to emerge, one that speaks not just to the drama surrounding John Bolton, James Comey, or Letitia James, but to the state of American democracy itself. Donald Trump's penchant for targeting former allies and critics isn't merely a personal vendetta. It's a pattern that raises fundamental questions about the intersection of power, accountability, and history. Trump's approach, weaponizing investigations, seizing headlines, and cultivating an air of inevitability around revenge, has consequences that extend far beyond individual targets. It challenges norms that have long underpinned American politics. The idea that institutions function independently of personal grudges, that no one is above the law, and that accountability is consistent, not selective. For the public, these events blur lines between legal proceedings and political theater, leaving citizens to wonder whether justice is being served or if they are witnessing a strategic performance by a former president who refuses to let go of perceived slights. History, too, will have its say. John Bolton himself has predicted that Trump's legacy will be one of destruction rather than construction, a vandal warlord rather than a conventional president. And while history often tempers immediacy with nuance, the sequence of events, indictments, investigations, and public attacks on former aides creates a narrative difficult to ignore. It's a cautionary tale of what happens when the personal and political become inseparable, when leadership prioritizes retribution over governance. There's also a darkly humorous dimension to this historical unfolding. Imagine future textbooks describing a president who kept thousands of classified documents at a private resort, pursued former aides legally for telling the truth, and framed every grievance as a question of justice. It's absurd, yes, but it's real, and Americans are living it now. For viewers, it's a reminder that politics is not just about policy or elections. It's also about character, precedent, and the limits of power. Ultimately, the lesson is clear. The ripple effects of these events extend well beyond Trump's immediate circle. They shape public trust in institutions, influence political norms, and provide a lens through which historians will assess the resilience of democracy. The stakes are high, the consequences lasting, and the story far from over. For those watching closely, the question remains, will this be remembered as a cautionary tale of ambition and revenge, or as a turning point in the safeguarding of democratic principles? Either way, it's a story worth following because the echoes of Trump's actions will resonate long after the headlines fade.